Hi guys, welcome to the Des Moines Valley Railroad, the February 2016 update to the layout. This month I've been finishing, doing it kind of in an electronics world. I've been finishing the grade crossing pros, got the last crossing put in. A little bit of trouble with it, but between the little bit of advice from the guy that makes it and all that, we were able to get it to work. So everything's working great in grade crossing world. The frog juicers was the other project I was working on last month, and those are all in. They're all operating. Everything's running great. Ready to switch out of electronic world for a little while. I feel like I spent more time under the layout than above the layout, getting things tweaked and all that. So, but this month's update, I had a comment from a subscriber that had asked if I could do a locomotive roster showing the locomotives I have. I can do that. I may wait another month to do that. I have a locomotive that is out for repair right now, and I'd kind of like to get that one back and get it so I can photograph it and add it to the roster. So stay tuned on that one. I'll make that part of the March update. This month I don't have a lot else to show. I will show you one of the unique things with the Grade Crossing Pro. If you've got a switch on one end, this was the problem I had. I had the sensors for the two tracks coming into the switch on the one end too close together. So as the train would approach the crossing, the adjacent tracks sensors would trigger too and cause a false trigger. I was getting flickering lights and all that, especially with longer passenger cars and longer freight cars, and so I had the sensors basically too close to the switch. So what I did was put the sensors on the single track side of the switch and wired them into the contacts, extra set of contacts on the tortoise switch machine. So now, depending on which way I have the track set, it'll trigger the crossing in the appropriate manner and have a little less, no interference that way. So I can show you guys that. Other than that, maybe just do a brief layout tour again to show you all the areas, and we'll go from one end to the other. So stay tuned, and we'll get going on that. Okay, so here is the place where I have the problem. The last grade crossing I put in is this one here. The other thing I wired into this crossing is a manual switch, because I do have a lot of switching in here. Right now the main track and the siding, which is main track siding, are all using those sensors. But I have also a little spur here for the coal plant, and it does not have any sensors. And also I have a spur here to the grain elevator and a spur here to Pella Corp that don't have sensors as well. But with these tracks, I basically put the sensors that are close to the road kind of right here and right there. So as the train comes out, it does trigger the sensors before the crossings flash. The other thing I do with this track, and I can do with these if I want them to last longer, is I've got this little manual switch here that as I flip it on, you'll see the crossings flash, and then I'll flip it back off again, and about 5 seconds they'll turn back off. So this is a good manual override way of being able to cover those tracks that don't have the sensors on them, the detectors and sensors and all that. So that's kind of what I worked on here. Oh, like I said, for this, what I was having a problem with is I had sensors. You can see a little bit here. I still need to do some more ballasting. I had sensors here and there, which were the distance I wanted from the crossing, but they would interfere with each other. So as a train would come and hit this one, it would trigger these, and vice versa, and it would cause the signals to extend and not, they would basically, the detectors along this route would start out, but then when this one would trigger, it'd be the detectors along this route, which didn't have any trains, so it would struggle looking for a additional detection down the road that didn't happen. So instead of having it all confused, we ended up putting up the sensors over here, just on this side of the switch machine, and wired it into the contacts. So now when I have the main line set, all these detectors will run, and if I switch over to the siding, this sensor will connect to the other ones on that side. So it actually worked out really good. So that's kind of the long and the short of that project. Now let's look at the along the layout and see where I am so far here. Alright, well, let's begin our tour here in the staging yards. This actually represents 4 different off-layout locations. The first being Oskaloosa, which are the first 2 tracks here. This is the end of the branch line that takes off from Evans Junction. The next 4 tracks would be Ottumwa, which would be the far eastern part of the line. The next 4 tracks would represent Des Moines, which is the far western part of the line. And the last 2 tracks over there would represent the Iowa Interstate Interchange track to Newton. So then, as we come on the other side of the divider backdrop here, we come out, we have the main line there coming out of Ottumwa and the branch track coming out of Oskaloosa, going by Beacon Hill here. Just a little hillier part of the layout. And then we come out here and there are 3 tracks. The track on the far right represents continuous running. When I want to run the layout just to run, I have a track that goes around here. And it's, even though tunnels aren't prototypical in Iowa, I kind of created one here for visual interest and to create kind of a scene block. And also kind of just using modeler's license. Then we have the 2 tracks coming here on the left and center. When I run point to point, that far track is used as a storage track for the mine, which we're coming up on here. We cross over Highland Street, it's a little gravel road, and then we come into the area of Evans Junction. We have the mine headquarters here, and then the mine itself over here on the hillside, a coal mine. And there actually was a mine at one point in Evans Junction called the American Mine. And back in the early 20s and 30s, they mined coal. All this whole region in this area mined coal. So we've got the spur for the hopper cars to take coal, and then we have a storage track which I use for the continuous running that will store more cars. And then we have the junction here where the Oskaloosa branch joins the main line. And then we continue west from there. We begin a siding here, which is the east end of Lighton. The spur track for Evans Junction's mine comes here, in here, and then we have a spur track on this end that goes to Lighton Lumber. Also Ebenezer Fence is the other industry here. So Lighton Lumber takes on center beam cars, and the Ebenezer Fence takes box cars. So it loads in and out. Usually loads in, empties out for the Lighton Lumber, and loads out, empties in for Ebenezer Fence. And then we have the siding continuing back here in the background, the trees. We've got an old spur that takes off at this point. This was the spur to the grain elevator, which doesn't use rail service anymore, so it's been abandoned, and there's trucks that are used now to haul out things. So, continuing on across here, we cross Ottley Street, which is the main drag in Lighton. And then this is the town of Lighton. The track passes in front of it. And Lighton is not a very large community, a little farm town. And continuing down, we pass a little farmstead here. Actually, we have a farmhouse and a barn and little things going on there, and a farm produce stand out front for the highway traffic to stop and get produce. And out here off this little street called Cordova Road, we've got a little schoolhouse, a little one-room schoolhouse with kids playing. And I'm going to add more to this scene in the future. Continuing west, go back and see the the corn growing there in the back and a little field. And continuing on, just outside of the Pella yard area, we've got the diesel facility. This is where all the diesels are serviced for the line. And this also represents about the midpoint of the railroad. The total line in the real prototype line was 84 miles long, and Pella was at about the 45-mile point. So, and then continuing through here, we've got the yard office and the fairly small yard. Pella's not a huge yard. In the back we have some industries as well. We've got Central Gas that uses tank cars, and Pella Feed, and the Pella Co-op. It's actually called Two Rivers Co-op. They take covered hoppers. Also in the foreground here we have got my way bills on top, but we have the team track and a switcher there to switch the yard. We've got a Marshall Cannery. There was at one point in Pella the Marshall Cannery in real life. And then continue on across substation here, across one of the larger roads, Clark Street. There's the light plant, the Pella light plant, that takes coal and generates electricity. And continuing on, we have the actual Pella Depot. This is one that is sold by Walthers, but it actually is based on the real Pella Depot. We've got that there. And as the train continues to head west, coming through town, we pass the Pella Court. You make the windows and doors. So a lot of traffic is generated in and out of Pella Court here. And then across Main Street, we come through around the town here. Got a little park scene going on here, and a few more crossings. There's a central windmill that we have in town as well, so I've represented that here. And Pella is kind of historically a Dutch community, so a lot of the buildings take on a European flavor. The other part of this is that I used to, back when I was a sophomore in high school, my dad had a sabbatical and we spent some time in Holland, and I lived there for 7 months. And while there, I built some of these buildings. So some of the European buildings you see here, I built quite a few years ago. One's the three in the back there, or three of them, and then this the Arson Bakery here. So, continuing on around, we have a little quarry scene outside this town here. This actually started from an accident. I had an accident with glue. I had some super glue that was laying on this corner, and it dissolved the foam, created a nice little crevice. So I decided, hey, let's make something out of it. So we made a quarry scene. And there are rock quarries in this area too, so it's fairly prototypical. We got the Dairy Queen that I just built. I'm going to detail that scene up a little bit more. Got a church here representing one of we got 23 churches in town, so this represents one of those. And then coming on around, we've got another windmill out here on the outskirts of town. Some construction being done here. And then we've got our drive-through, or drive-in, sorry, drive-in. I wanted to put in a drive-in. There was a drive-in just outside of town for a while, and this represents that. So then moving on down the line, we have the track split apart here for the Ottley siding. There's the team track for Ottley. Got the little station sign and just a little kind of a weather shack that the crew can get out of the rain. They need to stop and do switching here. We have an old farmer's co-op. That's here. And then we have a cattle pen that's used once in a great while. I have one cattle car, stock car, that I can use for that. But most cattle hasn't been running the railroad since the 60s, so it'll just be a special car here and there. Well, continuing from that, we go through the town of Ottley. This town I'm going to make maybe a little rougher kind of town and make it a little more of a happening spot. Moving over here, we have another grain elevator. This is actually the one we just covered on the other side, but Ottley also has a Two Rivers co-op, so I thought we would create the non-rail version of it over here. And continuing out, we have 163 following the right here, the parallel road, and another crossing of Old Highway 163 getting into Ottley. We've got a little antique barn that I want to detail up with some more details of people and stuff. Moving on along, we got a general store. Again, I'm going to use for more detailed stuff. And continuing down, we got a residential area here with different things going on, backyard parties, and we got a firehouse and a restaurant, a hotel. It's kind of like the long road into town kind of thing, where all the businesses would build up along the roads. Gas station. I want to detail this scene up a little more. And then the Highway 14 crossing, which we have the Pella Depot. And there's actually a business in the Pella Depot. Gilroy Glass. So it gets a car once in a while, so supplies. And we got a newer grain elevator over here. And the older one there. That takes some grain cars. Continuing on around. This is the outside of Monroe. We've got a food distribution place there, Jasper Foods. We've got a cement company there, Inland Cement, and a manufacturing, Monroe Manufacturing there, and a scrap yard. So we've got good switching opportunities over in this corner of the layout. This is also the place where the Iowa Interstate takes off from there and heads toward Newton. So Monroe gets served by both the Des Moines Valley and the Iowa Interstate railroads. So you'll see both the old Rock Island engines here as well as the Iowa Interstate. And again, we have a junction switch here, which goes left for continuous running and right into the staging area of Des Moines. So there's actually a couple other communities before Des Moines. We've got Prairie City and Altoona, but for the most part, those are all covered by the staging area. Again, I have a tunnel there. It's not prototypical, but it helps create the dividing line for the layout. And that's pretty much it. If we go back under, the track goes back underneath the backdrop, and we end up on this side of the layout with the staging yards here. And as I showed in an earlier video, we have the Y there to be able to turn engines around. And the 3 switches there to go around. And the Iowa Interstate traffic here in the foreground. Okay guys, well there you have it. Just kind of give you a good explanation of the different areas around the layout, and maybe another month or two we'll talk about some of the operations with the trains. But again, wanted to kind of give you a good tour of what we got going, and go from there. Again, next month I'm hoping to do show the roster of my locomotives. That should be a little fun thing too. So I don't have a lot of locos, I only have 10 at the present time, but hoping to add more in the future. So until then, thanks for please like, subscribe, comment. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I look forward to seeing you next month here on the Des Moines Valley Railroad. See you later.